Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let me show you how I made this minion hat. This is a super simple pattern and it's perfect for beginners because there's no sewing, no embroidery, just pure crochet. And to make things even easier, I used a giant hook and bulky weight yarn so that everything worked up really fast. This hat is made in one piece and you can make it as small or as big as you want. For this video, I crocheted 2 different sizes, one for adults and one for kids. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we need to do is to make a magic loop and pull it tight. The loop should be as wide as you want the hat to be at the top. Now we're going to start crocheting in rounds. Make sure to keep your stitches nice and tight so the loop doesn't come undone. You'll be using single crochet for this entire project, which is a great stitch for beginners. As you crochet around, count your stitches. Once you've gone all the way around the loop, you'll have formed a circle. Keep crocheting in rounds, adding 1 stitch in each multiple of 6. Every time you add a stitch, you'll end up with a total of 7 stitches. Continue crocheting in rounds until your circle is as tall as you want the top of the hat to be. The taller you make this part, the more stitches you'll have in total and the thicker the band will be. I made mine about 4 inches tall. Now we're going to change colors and start creating the minion stripes. We'll be working in groups of 7 stitches. When you reach the end of each round, simply pull your stitch over the opposite side of the circle. This will create a line down the center of your hat and help you keep track of your stitches. As you continue crocheting, always make sure to pull your stitches tightly so the lines stay nice and straight. Remember to add a stitch every time you reach a multiple of 6. So for example, if you have 7 stitches, then 13 stitches, then 19 stitches, etc. If you make a mistake and drop a stitch, don't worry. Just be sure to fix it right away. Otherwise, you might lose a stitch later on. To fix a drop stitch, you'll need to stick the end of your contrasting color into the magic loop before you pull it tightly. That way you'll be able to catch the drop stitch before you move too far along. The first stripe took me 26 rows to complete. Then I added another stripe in black. Remember to always keep your stitches tight. It's better to have a tight stitch than a loose one. After all, you can always just squish your amigurumi to make it look nicer. But if your stitches are too loose, it'll be hard to fix them without unraveling part of your piece. Also remember to use contrasting colors for this project. It makes it much easier to follow the pattern and it looks really cute. After the black stripe, I went back to the blue again and continued on for a total of 5 stripes. I ended up with a total of 108 stitches for the adult-sized hat and 72 stitches for the kid-sized hat. Now you could keep going and add more stripes, but I think this looks best with 5 stripes. Of course, it's completely up to you how many stripes you want to add. If you want a shorter hat, then make less stripes. If you want a longer hat, then make more stripes. Next, we are going to decrease the size of the circle by taking 1 stitch from each side of the circle and putting them together. Be careful when you do this because you don't want to pull too aggressively and mess up your stripes. You should now have a total of 6 stitches. Continue crocheting in rounds while keeping your stitches nice and tight. Every time you reach a multiple of 6, add a stitch. This will gradually widen your hat and make it the right shape. I recommend counting your stitches every few rounds to make sure you haven't made any mistakes. For the adult-sized hat, I crocheted for a total of 24 rounds until my hat was almost 9 inches in diameter. At this point, I thought the hat looked perfect and was ready to move on to the next step. However, for the kid-sized hat, I needed to crochet for a total of 30 rounds. The reason why the kids hat needed more rounds is because I started with fewer stitches. If you started with more stitches, then your kid's hat would be finished at the same time as the adult hat. Next, we're going to start decreasing the number of stitches in our hat. To do this, take 1 stitch from each side and put them together. You should now have 5 stitches. Continue crocheting in rounds while keeping your stitches nice and tight. Make sure to add a stitch every time you reach a multiple of 5. Every time you finish a round, you'll notice that your hat starts to fold in on itself. Just keep crocheting and the hat will form the right shape. Once you have 2 stitches left, go ahead and pull them together and then cut off the excess yarn. Be careful not to cut too close to your stitches or else they might unravel. To finish off the hat, simply pull the ends of yarn through the top of the stitching. This will hide the knots and make your hat look nicer. Now we're going to turn our hat right side out. Be gentle and try not to stretch out your hat too much. Now we're ready to stuff our minion head with fiberfill. Try to distribute the stuffing evenly to make sure your minion head is nice and plump. I used about 1/2 cup of stuffing for the kid-sized hat and about 1 cup of stuffing for the adult-sized hat. Once your hat is stuffed, you're done. Look at this cutie pie. Isn't this hat so cute? Now you know how to make a minion hat. You can make one for yourself, for your friends, for your family members. It's such a fun project and it makes a great gift. If you want to learn how I made this Amigurumi minion, then check out my next video. I'll see you there. Bye for now.